Hello everyone, it's Pocho. I have a very short length of time to make a video today, but we have 7 new spoilers, so I'm going to go over them really quick and talk about each of them in turn. They're less powerful than the previous ones. A lot of them look like solid draft commons or uncommons. Some of them look quite weak, some of them are not. So we're going to play over them and just take a quick look. Alright, first off, Brass Shorthorn. This is a 1-cost 2/1. It's a Minotaur, so right away that Vicious Gorehorn, or Relentless Gorehorn I believe it was called, that we saw earlier has a little bit more stuff to work with. A 1-cost 1/2 is the bare minimum stat line that you can get without being just completely pathetic. I think overall it's not particularly great, but if you're going to do uncommon drafting with Minotaurs, that's definitely something you want. The nice thing about it is that it is a fairly aggressive card in just Shadow. It gives Shadow a little bit more push in a draft archetype. It might even give Shadow a little bit more push in a ranked archetype, but I suspect that a 1-cost 2/1 is just not good enough. So this card, really interesting draft setup, does pretty well for that, and beyond that, not too much interesting going on, apart from the fact that it is, in fact, another Minotaur, which is pretty nice. Okay, Cerso's Meddling. 6-cost to transform a unit into a 2/2 pig as a fast spell. Wow, I was underwhelmed by this card at first. I'm a little bit less tentative on it now. I think it's still pretty bad. For 6, you have a fast spell transform, which is better than Polymorph, certainly, but I mean, I would expect that kind of thing at a 4-cost. And we already have a fast spell transform in the form of the Dinomancer one, Tyrannize. That card's not seeing a lot of play right now because you can only sort of use it as an offensive trick. This one has the advantage of being a defensive trick, but again, I don't know if that's worth the 2 extra costs that you're paying for it. It splashes very well, which means that it's a draft removal card. Blue doesn't have enough removal, so you might see this in draft because it is something that, like, basically you need removal, and if you're going to be creating meat walls, if you're going to be doing anything that involves a lot of blocking and a lot of big stuff, yeah, Cerso's Meddling might see play. I don't see it in a ranked deck at the moment, but jury's out. There's maybe some ways in which you could make it happen. It'd probably require a bit of Johnnying, maybe something that like affects spells that are 6-cost or more, some sort of interaction with, like, you know, if you're playing a Geralt deck, then this is a fast spell that you can run without feeling too bad about it. In all, I'm not particularly fond of this card in terms of power level. I don't really know that we need another Cerso card in general, like Feeding Time already did that, so I'm not certain of the purpose of this card beyond sort of a draft archetype common that gives blue a little bit more in terms of toolkit. It's kind of nice in Huru because Huru has a lot of endurance units, which means that Cerso's Meddling is going to be much more often a straight removal card, where your opponent attacks you with something, you meddle it, it turns into a pig, and then you are able to block it. And it doesn't cost you any tempo, you don't have to hold still, you just block, and then it dies. So, yeah, not amazing, but certainly an interesting draft common. Next up, Cult Aspirant. Yeah. Overwhelm, Lifeforce. When you gain health, Cult Aspirant gets +1/+1. Probably the most exciting uncommon shown today. There might be 1 or 2 more that are pretty close. But yeah, Overwhelm on a 1/1 is always cute. The Lifeforce ability, however, is very strong. We know this because we've seen this type of ability on Awakened Student, and Awakened Student is very strong. This card's a really good draft card. This card is a clear Lifeforce enabler in terms of like the Xenan deck. This is the kind of card that we've been looking for in terms of like seeing if Lifeforce is a valid archetype, because A, it's a cheap Lifeforce common, and B, it's one that actually it has something that really like benefits the team. So like if you're doing like Water of Life, if you're doing Sanctuary Priest, you are getting something out of this that's really simple, straightforward, and needs to die. Since all of your Lifeforce cards are going to be something that needs to die, Cult Aspirant is doing a really good job on that front. Also, Cult Aspirant interacts very well with Recursion, Dark Return, Grasping at Shadows, anything where you can get it back from the Void, if you can give it Revenge, if you can do anything to get it back over and over again. It is an Overwhelm unit, so it's really nasty because it just, you have to deal with it every time if it's too big. So yeah, Cult Aspirant, very solid, like really good uncommon, very good in draft. Clearly Lifeforce draft is definitely a thing. I would say this card also is a clear enable for ranked draft. So yeah, good stuff. Next up, we have Hidden Shiv. Yay! Oh man, I'm really delighted by this card. It's a 1/0 warp weapon, which means that you put it on a unit, not a relic. And goodness me, the sun just decided to start shining on my face, but excuse my radiant glow. Alright, so yeah, this card is basically play a +1/0 weapon, draw a card. So similar to an ornate katana, except cheaper and faster and less reliable. You can play in Skycrag, you're going to be putting this on top of your deck with Second Sight, so why do you even care? It's just an extra bonus that thins out your deck and does really, really good things that way. If you're playing this in like a more red or in a Praxis archetype, then you're using this card to either play a bunch of warp cards all at once, or to thin out your deck to run things like Praxis Stranger, and like just to play cards out really, really fast. You get a lot of advantage out of this card. It's it's good and quick and nasty with quick draw units. It works well on Rakano Outlaw. It has clear disadvantages in terms of just overall stat line to cost and like the unreliability of warp. But I think this card is actually quite strong. I think this card could see some play in ranked. I think this card is very, very good in draft. So neat card, adds a lot of value, doesn't win games by itself, but tends to really push that extra amount of damage. Pretty crucial. All right, next up, we got Peacekeeper's Prod. Summons, stun an enemy unit, 3/2 weapon. Very good in draft. Probably terrible in rank, but I don't know. That triple green is a little bit difficult to run, so you gotta be pretty careful with that. It makes it a little hard to play, but I think that overall it gives you a decent amount of aggression. It gives you pseudo removal on a weapon. This is something that you can stick on a lot of different units and just feel pretty happy with it, because you're disabling a unit for 2 turns. You have a minor weapon with a rebuke on a stick. Those two things together, again, make it a really fun draft card. Like, the draft archetype is really just blossoming. This is looking pretty amazing. I don't know about ranked. I think that it seems a little bit too light on stats to work in ranked, but we might see it happen. All right, next up is Torgoth Icecast Trader, a rare. When Torgoth hits the enemy player, which is to say it's like an infiltrate effect, except that I'm not even sure if it matters if Torgoth has 0 attack. Like, if he just whiffs from a detain or something, he might still draw a card. I'm really curious to test that out. But in any case, draw a card, then discard a card. +3/+3 when you have 15 or more cards in your void. You could activate this with, like, Sporefolk, things like that. But the +3/+3 is a bonus that you probably shouldn't be digging for or trying to activate too hard. The main thing that's good about Torgoth is that A, he is a 4-cost 4/5. That stat line is actually pretty bananas. There are not that many cards that have that many stats at this cost. I mean, Sandstorm Titan obviously is a pretty solid exception, but like, this one actually is like a real beefy little vanilla unit. And then the draw a card, discard a card ability is actually really, really strong. You can do a lot of cool activators. You can discard all of Blue's exceptional Echo cards to gain half-card advantage off of every single Torgoth hit. You can discard cards like Privilege of Rank and cards that you need to resurrect in Feln. So Huru and Feln both get good activators. That's really nice. Torgoth is solid all around. I think he's got a lot of interesting things going on for him. He's just a good vanilla unit that gives Blue a good defensive base against most of the more aggressive units. He's got a very solid stat line. His ability is quite strong, and the extra bonus +3/+3 means that eventually he gets some level of inevitability, although getting that level of inevitability is pretty hard, so don't count on that. But yeah, Torgoth is neat. And he's got a bear friend. The bear friend is important. All right, final one is Oasis Seeker. When Oasis Seeker attacks, you gain 1 health, 3/2 in time. This is one of the more interesting cards because this is essentially the equivalent of the 2-cost green 3/2 Argenport Soldier, and the yellow equivalent of Argenport Soldier is a 2/3. So this card is just straight up better than Argenport Soldier. Like, there's just absolutely no denying that. It costs the same amount, it has the same influence cost. When it attacks, you gain that extra health, and that extra health is excellent. And it's in a class that actually wants a bit more like early aggression. It's not as defensive as Bold Adventurer, but like that extra health means that you don't have to be defending as much. Also, this is a clear activator for Lifeforce cards. This is a card that you play specifically with the new Cultist that we just saw. It activates all of the cool Lifeforce abilities that we've seen so far, including the ones that draw cards. The attack effect means that you gain that health before anything else can happen, and that's really actually very important because there are a lot of cards that we have where it's just like whenever you gain a life, you get this ability. In particular, Waystone Infuser gives you a card when you gain a health. There aren't that many ways to just gain a health right now, so you can play Waystone Infuser, play like Water of Life, and then your opponent can annihilate Waystone Infuser and you don't draw the card. But Oasis Seeker, not the case. You get the health no matter what. You activate the Life Force no matter what. Oasis Seeker is very, very strong in that respect. This card will see play in both ranked and draft. He's a very, very solid 2-drop. Good stat line, does a really good thing on attack, manages to be defensive while being aggressive, and then the Life Force activation is super, super important. So he's a clear Life Force staple. Oasis Seeker is sort of, again, one of those cards that we're looking for to make sure that Life Force is actually a real set. I was not in any doubt, but there it is. We've got it. All right. So that's it from me. This had to be a quick one, but I hope you enjoyed the short format. Feel free to like or subscribe, and I will see you next time with more spoilers, or maybe with set 2. Cheers.